It's 2021, the start of grade 8, and I've made myself a promise that I'm not going to let it get to the end of the year without having lost my V card. That had been my main priority all throughout year 7, right, the year before. And so I tell myself that if I get to the end of the year and I haven't had sex yet, I'm a complete loser. That is genuinely how I felt. In this moment in time, I felt like a loser, like most young men do, right? Now, I'll try not to repeat too many details in this video, but most of you will know in March of this year, I get my very first girlfriend. And the question on my mind is, was it because I was genuinely attracted to her? Sure, maybe. But I think the real reason I got into a relationship with this girl so quick was because I just wanted to grab the closest opportunity to me, right? I didn't put too much thought into it. She's attractive, she's got some traits that I would typically look for in a girl. Let's get into a relationship. I wasn't too concerned about who this experience I'd been waiting to have all this time was going to be with, all right? Now, I'll save you all the boring details and I'll fast forward all the way to September of the same year, the day I lose my V card. Now, I'll just say, leading up to this experience, I really expected it to be like this amazing thing that brought a new perspective into my life that made me feel this deep sense of fulfillment. But the effect I thought it was going to have on my life was actually the opposite, okay? Because after I had done it, it left me feeling good for maybe a day or two. But following that, I was hit with this sense of I need more. You know, it left me wanting more. It didn't bring this sense of happiness or fulfillment into my life because, you know, happiness is purely just an emotion. It's not a state of being, you know, it comes and goes. So I started to feel this deep sense of lack in my life, like there was something missing. Was there? Maybe, but I'll get to that in a minute. But what truly was missing was that connection with someone. All this time, what I had been waiting for, what I had been craving, what I just was oh so desperate to have was human connection. It wasn't lust, because this is just a moment, a fleeting moment. It feels good for 15, 20 minutes, however long the experience is. But it's fleeting. It's exactly that. Just like happiness, lust is an emotion. It doesn't stay forever because it lasts for that finite amount of time. If you could feel that way all of the time, it wouldn't be special, okay? So I started to chase that temporary high, that moment, that special moment all of the time. I started to feel this sense of lack. With started watching it multiple times a day whilst I'm still in the relationship, mind you. And I didn't really see a problem with this at the time. You know, the feeling went away, my relationship's going fine. I think, cool, simple as that. I'm just a teenager. Yo, brother, if you're enjoying this video, do me a massive favor and hit the sub button. You have no idea how much it helps me out. But with that said, I'll let you get back to the video, boy. Anyhow, fast forward towards the end of 2023. By this point, I'm no longer in that relationship. It just didn't work out. Go figure, I entered with very impure intentions. And I've been single for a little bit over a year around this time. And because of this, I really felt that sense of lack in my life more so than ever. You know, now I'm 16 years old by this point, and I see all the people around me, you know, 16, 17-year-olds, guys I went to school with, getting girlfriends. And so I felt behind. And I had this mental frame in my mind at the time that if I wasn't having sex with a girl, that made me a loser. Of course it doesn't. This is just the way I would think at the time. So that voice in my head, right, that voice we all have, is just constantly feeding me negative thoughts. You're a loser. You know, you're not attractive to girls. You can't get any women. So once again, what does that lead me to doing? I jump at the closest opportunity that I can, okay? This girl I knew from school happened to have a friend. She sent me a photo of her one day and I said, oh, you know, she's attractive. Sure enough, I start talking to her. Now, off the cuff, I knew this girl wasn't the right type of girl for me. I'm not saying there was anything inherently bad about her, but I could just see that she didn't have the traits that I would look for in the person I wanted to marry. But despite this, I put that aside and I say to myself, you know, oh, she'll just be someone who I talk to for the time being, you know, someone who I can just get around with sometimes. And I continue talking to her. You know, I have her over one day. Now, over the next couple of months, I continue having her around to my house, you know, hanging out with her just about every single weekend. You know, being 16-year-olds, we do what 16-year-olds do. But as soon as she would leave, this feeling of lack would come back. It's almost like a void or a feeling of emptiness, right? Now, you can call it cringe, right? I'm just saying what 99% of men are too afraid to say. But by this point, given that I'm a fair bit older than that first experience, you know, I've given up porn, I haven't got an addiction to it anymore. I understand that what I crave isn't this moment that is very short-lived. It's genuine connection with a woman. I knew all of this time that is what I had been craving. And once I eliminated the porn, I had identified that was a substitute for this connection. And now I was getting wound up in this thing that I kept telling myself was going to be casual because I craved that human connection. We all do, bro. It's human nature. You can try and be this super cold fucking alpha guy, but at heart, we're always going to crave human connection. That is just how humans work. Now, bro, I understand a large majority of my audience are 18 to 24, that sort of age range. So I know exactly how you feel, okay? All we really want at the end of the day is a girl who loves us for who we are, right? Loves the man we are, supports us in the journey of trying to become the man we want to become, and shares similar vision and values. That's all you want at the end of the day. But I think my biggest problem throughout all of my teenage years was just jumping at the closest opportunity, right? I wasn't really looking for that girl who was going to be alongside me in the tough times, the easy times, and everything in between. Despite understanding that's what was in my best interest, I thought that I could change these girls and make them fit the mold of what I expected of them, or, you know, the values that I expected out of them. But the thing is, if you go into it with that mindset, you have already failed in the relationship and you might as well cut it off instantly. And I think that's the main mistake that 99% of young men make, is just rushing into a relationship too quickly and trying to change a girl into what you want them to be rather than accepting them for what they already are. If you're going into a relationship with a girl who isn't, you know you wouldn't marry her one day, trying to change her is like trying to fix something which is completely fucking broken, okay? Not that the girl is, but you get the point. But anyhow, it gets to around 3 months into talking to this girl, and I start to rationalize being in a relationship with her. Of course, I haven't asked her to be my girlfriend yet, but I genuinely start to consider it. You know, I think maybe I'll ask her out next time she's here. She'd come over and I'd say, oh no, I'll put it off to the next time. But I started to reason with myself in that this girl had changed enough for her to be wifey material to me. But the thing with it was, anytime I was around her, it didn't feel real, if that makes sense. There was no sense of authenticity, okay? We got a lot closer, like I said, but I never felt like I could be my 100% self around her. And that, of course, is likely mostly in my head, but I didn't feel that connection that you're supposed to feel with someone. Well, I assume you're supposed to feel with someone who you love or who is like your life partner, soulmate, whatever you want to say, bro. It always sort of just felt like we were acquaintances rather than partners, all right? And I'm not saying any of this to try and disrespect this girl or throw shade at her. I still hold her to a high regard and genuinely do have respect for her. This is just me talking about my perspective on the whole experience. But it gets towards the end of November, and it's at this point that I begin to pick up an old habit. I start drinking every single weekend, and it wasn't just one or two. You know, I might sink 7 or 8 at a time, which, you know, it probably doesn't sound too crazy to people who do drink, but to me at the time, it definitely did a lot. So every single weekend, this was essentially my routine. I'd get home on a Friday night, sink a few bevies, go into my room and start writing music. It was really good for the music. It was very emotionally fueled, and I actually wrote my top performing song, as most of you will know, whilst I was drunk. But not only did it amplify my music, it amplified my emotional state in real life. So I would be sitting there feeling just this deep sense of emptiness, like something was, lacking in my life. So it was a little bit counterintuitive, me sitting there doing something which felt really purposeful, music, and doing something which completely shied away from my purpose, but having the two unite and somehow create art. But why the fuck am I telling you this, okay? Seems like we've gone off track. We haven't. Every single time I'd be writing music and drinking, I would be talking to this girl, okay? And she could always tell something was up, as in she could tell I was in an emotional state, right? So she would ask me like, Luke, are you okay? What's wrong? And I'd always just tell her I was tired. But every single time in the back of my mind, I just desperately wanted to say, I don't think this is the best thing for us. It's not in mine or yours best interest to continue this relationship. But somehow that feeling of knowing I'd get momentary highs every single week was more comforting than the feeling of knowing I would be alone if I said to this girl how I really felt. You know, I was more comfortable being in a relationship that wasn't exactly what I wanted for myself than I was being alone. And that is something which held me back for a very long time, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But it gets to February of 2024, and I finally decide I'm going to cut it off. It's the best decision I can possibly make, not just for myself, but for her. I don't want to keep leading her on. You know, I've been talking for a long time and haven't even asked her to be my girlfriend. And it's at the same time that I fall into my old habits. After not watching porn for, I believe, about 7 or 8 months, I fall back into the loop. But, you know, I notice it pretty quickly. I stop after about a week. But all of this because I wished for too much too soon. Like I said, I wanted to lose my V card far sooner than I should have. And I think the biggest thing for me, bro, is the fact that I felt like a loser all of this time. But let me just tell you, I understand most young men feel this way. You feeling like a loser is you feeling the need to conform to societal pressures and societal norms around you, okay? You feeling like a loser is because you haven't done what the large majority of people around you have done. But let me just tell you this, and I learned this the hard way. I'm going to lay it on you real quick. What genuinely makes you a loser is conforming to what everyone else expects of you. You want to be the same as everyone else, you do the same as what everyone else does, right? But at the end of the day, bro, what I worked out was I don't need to be the same as everyone else. Cool, call me a loser. You don't need to have the same experiences as everyone else. Having a lack of self-control does not make you cool. That is the very thing which turns you into a loser. I think one of the biggest defining factors between winners and losers is their self-control and their ability to be influenced by others. I saw it with my own mates in high school, all of which I've cut off now. Just their ability to not be influenced by other people being so low. You know, they might quit doing for a couple of weeks, and then one of the boys would ask them to come around and they'd fold like that. No self-control, they're just influenced by their environment. And bro, I can't even blame them, because that is exactly what I did. That's what this whole story's been about. I was influenced by everyone else. I felt like a loser if I didn't do X. I felt like a loser if I didn't have sex, right? And I'm sure many young men do. But you don't need to. It's gonna happen eventually, okay? If you give in to this urge now, you feel like you have to conform because everyone else around you is doing it, you're going to end up doing it with the wrong person, which I definitely feel I did. You know, we live and we learn. But I think if you rush into a relationship, especially at this age when you don't genuinely have pure intentions, it's not gonna work out in your favor. And she's not gonna be the one, she will be the lesson, which is most common for the large majority of high school relationships. I'm sure a very small percentage of them actually work out. And bro, I'm 18 years old, so I'm no fucking expert. I'm just purely out here sharing my personal experiences. But what I will tell you is that there are a lot of things I look back on in high school that I definitely could have done with doing it a much later date, if at all, okay? And I'm not even sure if many of you are gonna relate to this on the level that some will. You know, some of you may not have even had a relationship before. You may not have even experienced some of the things that I said in this video, and that's okay, bro. I understand that most young men have this fear of talking to women and going up to girls, and I am no outlier to that. I will straight out say to you now, boys, despite the fact that I do it, I'm scared. You know, it is not a comfortable thing for me to do. I don't feel like I'm the most attractive guy. I genuinely know my worth as a man though. I believe if you can take action in spite of fear, that's what's going to lead to the most exponential growth. It may not show progress immediately, but over time, it's going to go like that. okay? I'm sure you're scared of approaching women, you're scared of rejection, you're scared of being alone, but oftentimes the things we're scared of are what's going to lead to the most progress over time. And like I said, I've come to learn that the hard way. It's taken me this long to learn it. I am fortunate enough to still be super fucking young, like I'm sure you are. Let me just leave you with this, bro. That move you're scared to make is gonna be the game changer, okay? The highest form of love is self-love. Become clear on who you are right now and the type of person you want to be, and start respecting yourself enough, taking the correct actions into becoming that man. If you act like him, you will become him. It's as simple as it gets. Because the truth is, it's not about being the man everyone else wants you to be. It's about being yourself and respecting the man that you want to become. And in doing so, you will become him. All right, so I hope this video helped, bro. If it did, hit the sub button. I will catch you in the next one. Stay grinding, my G. Yo, what's cracking, my G? Just wanted to let you know my clothing brand Hectic Threads is doing a killer deal at the moment. $50 off at checkout using code SNUGGEDUP. This deal is not gonna last forever. We ship internationally, worldwide. So if you wanna cop yourself a hectic hood just in time for winter, click that link below.